Hello, welcome. We have a wonderful presentation for you coming up, Birds and Their Nests by Joe Meche. Joe Meche is one of our founders of our festival. He's been with us for the full 19 years, plus he's been birding in Blaine for, I guess he says 30 years, maybe 40, I don't know, he's getting older. But he is an amazing avid birder here. He's a wildlife photographer and writer. He is a favorite speaker of ours for many, many years, for the last 17 years actually, or maybe 18 years now. And he will be providing this live webinar presentation, A Bird's Eye View of Their Nests. So I hope you enjoy it. I think you will enjoy Joe very much. He's a very entertaining speaker, as well as you'll learn a lot. So I hope you enjoy it. This also features his photography. He is the photographer for all of the photos that you'll be seeing in the presentation. Enjoy.
Well, good morning or good afternoon, I should say. I'm still on the other time, I think. And welcome to Wings Over Water 2021. Wow, it's been a long time to get here, but here we are. And my name is, as Debbie said, Joe Meche, and I can only hope to live up to the things that she said about me. I'll do my best. And you're going to be with me for the next, I don't know, hour and a half if you can handle it. And we're going to start off with a presentation about birds and their nests. We're going to segue, we're going to do a little Q&A, we're going to segue into the video tour, the walking tour of the Blaine waterfront. So hang tight and we'll get it all done. First thing I'd like to do is to send out a special thanks to all the volunteers that have made this festival possible over the last 18, 19, 20 years. I forget how many years it's been now. It's 17, it's 18, it's 19, whatever. We've had a great time, and all of it is thanks to the volunteers and the sponsors. And especially today, since we're doing this virtual, this is the first thing. I always like to be in front of people so I can tell my bad jokes, so I can use my hands as we do when we talk in the South. But I can't do that now. I can only assume that you're in the audience and you're waving. Are you waving? I know you are. But today, a special thanks, since we've gone over to all this virtual stuff and computerize this and computerize that, I would like to send a special thank you to Debbie, to Dan, and to Heidi for putting this all together and to getting us going. And I'm hoping that you're hearing what I'm saying because we're getting ready to start. Birds in their nests. I've always been fascinated by bird nests. It goes back to when I was a kid, when I first started birding when I was 8 years old. So what that means is that I've been birding, or at least interested in birds for, are you ready for this? 69 years. Yes, 69 years. I'm a really old guy, but I'm still out there doing it. And the thing I want to emphasize the most here is that all birds lay eggs. Birds lay eggs in different places. They're all called nests. And it's a variation on the old theme about the chicken and the egg, which came first. In this case, it's the bald eagle and the egg, which came first. But I think you'll find it pretty interesting. What I've done over the years is to, if I'm out in the field and I find a nest, I see if it's busy with adults coming and going, and I will mark that spot on my internal map. And I will return to that spot to see what activity is going on, because this actually March 21st, we're getting into the nesting season for birds. So this is the time when you're out on your bird walks to watch for bird nesting activity. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to look at the different types of nests that we can find around here. And this first one, the title slide, of course, is a nest of an Anna's hummingbird. And this is one I found on Watcom Creek a few years ago. And I want to tell you, once again, it's a classic example of finding the nest, staking it out. Don't visit it too often because you scare the birds away, but check it every now and then to see the progress. So let's get into the different types of nests. Here we go. Glitches are okay, they happen. I could tell you many stories about the glitches I've had over the years with Wings Over Water and other presentations. The basic types of nests that we're talking about, there's a scrape, which is a really basic nest. There's a mound, which we don't have any mound builders around here, but we have burrows. We have cavity nesters. We have birds that make basic cup nests, we have platform nesters, and we have a couple of pendant nesters. So let's have a look. We'll take them one at a time. We'll try to illustrate how one type nest becomes another type nest, because the basic premise is for birds to have a place to lay their eggs, a protected place to a great extent, a place that will nurture what's inside the eggs until they come out. Oh boy, here we go. Sensitive computer graphics. If you're walking along the shoreline, a gravel parking lot, just an open expanse, and you really don't expect, there are no trees around, so you don't expect to find bird nests. However, if you happen to stumble upon the nest of a killdeer, North America's #1 plover species, most numerous, you might stumble onto, hopefully you don't step on, but you might stumble onto a pair, usually a pair of killdeer eggs. And if you look how cryptically colored they are, they blend in quite well with the surroundings. And once again, this is a basic scrape. They don't do anything special. They just scrape a little indentation in the ground or wherever the gravel, and they lay a couple of eggs. Now, the best way to find a killdeer nest is to be alerted by the adult who saw you coming and tried to get you away from the nest by doing the classic distraction display. Now, killdeer will go away from the nest. They will pretend to have a broken wing or some type of injury that makes them more of an attractive target for predators than the nest, than the eggs. So they do this classic distraction display. A few other birds do it as well, but no species does it as well as the killdeer. So if you see this killdeer getting your attention by doing a distraction display, your job is to stop where you are, look around, see if you can find a couple of eggs. Here's another scrape nester. This is the Caspian tern. I monitored the Caspian tern colony on the Bellingham waterfront for 4 months in 2010. And in that time, I was able to observe the most incredible nesting sequence I've ever seen. I saw over 2,000 Caspian terns come into the colony on the old Georgia-Pacific site on the Bellingham waterfront. I watched them come in, slowly stake out their territories, and one after one, they made their scrape nest. They laid a couple of eggs in the nest, and then everything just was quieted down. I had permission to go onto the site. I had to sign a 7-page contract to do it, but I had permission to go on the site, and I sat 100 feet away from the colony for 4 months, and I saw things like this. If you look in the foreground, you'll see a broken eggshell. Look closer to the adult tern, and you'll see a chick that came out of that very egg. I had the whole thing on video, but that's another story and another program for another Wings Over Water. These birds are very hard to isolate when it comes to one bird because they nest in large colonies. This is when the whole contingent is there. And if you look around, you can see just about every beak of every adult tern is open. They're talking. This is the noisiest nesting colony of birds I've ever been around. And I've been around a few in South Louisiana and all along the southern Gulf Coast of the United States. And these are some of the noisiest. And a lot of people that were close to the colony did not like them because they were too noisy, if you can imagine that. So anyway, peak numbers here, there were over 3,000 adults nesting on the colony in Bellingham, summer of 2010. They fledged over 1,500 chicks, total of about 5,000 birds. They were very successful scrape nesters. One of the funniest things I've seen ever, some of the scrape nests were built on a slope. So I would watch an adult lay an egg and then step away from it to take a break. Then the egg would roll down the slope. They would walk back to the scrape and the nest was gone. So they'd lay another one. One of the fun things about being out in the field with birds, I'll tell you. Here's another scrape nester. This is one of my favorites. I say that about every bird because I guess they're all my favorites. This is a black oyster catcher. And I first noted, this is about 8 years ago, off Larrabee State Park. There's a big rock called the Gargoyle. And I first noted that there was nesting activity on top of Gargoyle. So I staked out a claim. I found my spot. And using a long telephoto lens, which explains the grainy nature of a lot of these photos, If you look closely below the oyster catcher adult in the grass, you'll see a couple of rounded shapes down there. Those are two oyster catcher eggs. And what comes from that is oyster catcher chicks. These guys, this one particular guy has a sibling off to the left here, but you can't see him. They're about 1 week old at this stage. And after I got a good look at them from up above, I kayaked out to the point, and it was just a real treat for me. And as I get older, the sightings get more exciting, if you can understand that. Now we segue into burrowing nests, burrowing nesters. On the same piece of property where I saw the black oyster catchers, I continually saw pigeon guillemots flying into this cliff face right down below where I was. And I thought they were just kind of hanging out there and this and that. So I kept watching, and they would go into this cliff face, and I couldn't see them from above. So I did a sort of a makeshift rappel down this 60-foot cliff. I know I'm crazy. And I found what appeared to me to be the makings of a burrow, because pigeon guillemots nest in burrows in soft sand or in crevices or cracks in shuckenut sandstone like you see here. So I kept going down this cliff, and one day I was rappelling down and I locked myself in place and I waited there. And who comes out of the burrow but an adult pigeon guillemot? They eventually nested. This was the kind of situation where I couldn't monitor as closely as I wanted because I had to rappel down a 60-foot cliff. But I'm sure that they fledged several youngsters out of here. Here's another burrowing nester that you all probably know quite well from local waters, the chatter, distinctive chatter of a belted kingfisher. This is a female. You can tell by the rust band on her belly. She is nesting in a burrow right behind me. She has secured lunch for her nestling. And what she's doing is every bird, just about every bird I've ever experienced, does not go straight to the nest when they return with food. They stop to look around to see if there are any predators or photographers lurking. Then they go into the burrow. Okay, this is a burrowing owl, the classic use of a burrowing nester in a name. Burrowing owls don't actually build their own burrows. They have a tendency to go into burrows that have been made by mammals like groundhogs and gophers and whatever. And sometimes they'll even take to PVC pipes to go into and lay their eggs way toward the back of the chamber. It's a fascinating thing. This particular owl I found late one evening outside of Othello, Washington. The light was bad then. So the next morning I got up at 4 o'clock, hit the all-night McDonald's for a large coffee and 2 Egg McMuffins, and I sat and I parked right in front of this burrow and I waited. And this is the reward you get for waiting patiently for birds to do their thing. Burrowing owl, love them. Unique to all get out. Okay, we segue once again, lots of segues here, into platform nests. This is a man-made platform, but it's readily been used by ospreys. This particular nest is on a river outside of Pendleton, Oregon. But once again, I got up early in the morning and I saw activity at the nesting site. So I just sat up, sat down, and waited. And they didn't disappoint. There are quite a few places around the country where we humans put up nesting platforms for ospreys. And one place in particular that I always note in every program, whenever I talk about ospreys, the Clark's Fork River in Montana has perfectly placed osprey platforms all along the river. And just about every one of them that I saw the last time I was in Montana was occupied in the spring. And what that does, if you see ospreys occupying a long stretch of river like that, the river is healthy. There's food to be had in there. And that's where you'll find ospreys. Now here's a local nester. This is at the Post Point Heronry in Bellingham, south side. Most of the time, if the wind is right, you can't miss the treatment plant aroma. But we have a large heronry, a colony of nesting great blue herons, and these guys are bridging the gap between a platform nest and a stick nest, because what you have is the basic idea of a nest is a cup shape on the inside to hold the eggs, keep them safe. And this one is made of sticks. And you can see this one heron doing his duty, carrying one piece of the puzzle back to the nest. So the little lady can remodel, do what she wants with it. And they meet up here and they are constantly, it's been my experience over the past few years in Bellingham that they're constantly remodeling their nest. Honey, we need something over here. Oh, and it's a joy to watch. And once again, you find the nest, you find the birds, you sit back and watch. You don't disturb, you just observe, and you learn a lot by watching them. Now, just across the railroad tracks at Post Point Marine Park in Bellingham, about 4 years ago, I saw a particular bird fly into a particular tree, and it kind of piqued my interest, so I waited to see what it was. Turns out it was a green heron, a smaller cousin of the great blue. Turns out there were 2 nests in Bellingham's Marine Park that year, and 6 chicks came out of it. But what I saw here was this green heron. They don't make a really great looking nest, but again, the whole idea is to make a receptacle for the eggs. And this one was so bad, in fact, that when I stood underneath it a couple of times, I could actually see the light blue color of the eggs. But it wasn't until I went by one day and looked on the ground and saw the broken egg shells. What did this tell me? This told me that the chicks had hatched. And sure enough, jockeying around for position, looking between the branches, I found 2 of the 3 green heron chicks right on the edge of the nest. And what a joy that was for me. I spent way too much time there that summer and watched them grow, watched them get to the point where they were almost ready to fledge. And then finally they fledged and then they were gone. But what a joy to see 2 separate nests of green herons in such a close, tight location as Marine Park. Everybody recognizes this. This is the nest of a bald eagle. And again, it starts out, the basic premise, it's a platform, it's built up. In the middle, if you could look down into the nest, you would see a cup. This is a nest across the Nooksack River from Hovander Park in Ferndale. And this is probably, I've been seeing it for over 40 years, and it could well be older than that, but it's still being used. And estimates that now and then say that these nests, after years, they're built up, over 1,000 pounds, close to 2,000 pounds of sticks and stuff that bald eagles just bring constantly every year. They want to remodel the nest. Here's a nest on the Drayton Harbor shoreline that Debbie might know if she's listening. And one year I know that this particular juvenile bald eagle came from that nest. I found him at Semiahmoo on the old pier, just sitting there, looking a little bewildered, like, what do I do next? This is a young bird, and I just love finding him. And I'm just assuming that it might have been from that nest. I like to do a storyline and even pretend, for the sake of the story, that this is where he came from. Another bird that will take advantage of a nest that was previously built by another bird, perhaps a red-tailed hawk or even a crow, a stick nest is suitable for great horned owls. And these great horned owls are just the best find you can ever imagine because they are protective. This is a male, and the male is keeping an eye on me because I'm out in front of the nest, below the nest, but he's watching me because I've got a tripod and this big long lens sticking out. Could be a gun, who knows? He's watching me while I'm watching the female. You can see her hunkered down in the back. You can see her great horn sticking up, and you can see the heads of 3 great horn owlets. This is outside of Nooksack. And what a treat this was. A friend of mine took me to it, and I just kind of wore out my welcome, I think, and stayed there a little bit too long. But that's the way I am when I find nesting birds. So be it. More stick nests, another species, same concept. We're making stick nests to hold the eggs. It becomes a receptacle for the egg. These are double-crested cormorants. These nests are on the breakwater at Blaine Harbor, and this is one of the busiest nesting colonies of great double-crested cormorants on the West Coast. A couple of years ago, we had 600 nests, and it usually hovers between 400 and 600. And if you imagine 2 to 3 nestlings per nest, we're talking about a lot of birds. Here are 2 young double-crested cormorants with their mouths open. They do this gular panting to keep themselves cool because this is in August and it gets really hot up there on the rocks. It's just not a good place to be, but you got to grow up somewhere. Remember, we all start at the same place. Sharing the breakwater at Blaine or double. Okay, no more water for me. Glaucous-winged gulls. Here's an adult glaucous-winged gull with 2 chicks, and they're nesting right below the double-crested cormorants. And glaucous-winged gulls will make their nests deep inside any crevice, any little nook inside the pieces of the breakwater. So it's really a wonderful thing to see them cohabiting. Then you take the same glaucous-winged gulls and you go to downtown Bellingham and you look at the stick nest that they make on a cornice, the ledge of which is 70 feet above the sidewalk on the corner of Cornwall and Holly Streets, right in the heart of downtown Bellingham. I took these photographs, this photograph and the next one, from the top of the Bellingham parking garage. And so I'm a block away watching the process go on, and occasionally I'd go back and check on them, and sure enough, hatchlings. And look how young these gulls are, and imagine the life ahead for them. They're on a ledge 70 feet above the sidewalk, which is very hard. They have to stay there for approximately a month before they can fly away, before they can fledge on their own. And this is in the summertime, and you know how hot it must get, totally exposed to the sun. You often find them in the shadow, the shade, so to speak, of the adults, if the adults can hang around that long. But mostly they're just up there cooking. South of Bellingham on the Chuckanut shoreline, shooting from a kayak again on the Chuckanut Rocks in Chuckanut Bay. There are 3 separate species of cormorants nesting here. The most prominent nesters here are Brandt's cormorants and pelagic cormorants, with the occasional double-crested cormorant. But what a treat to find all 3 on these rocks. And if you look closely, you can see the little nooks and crannies and crevices on the Chuckanut Rocks that appeal to them when it comes to making their nest. This particular pelagic cormorant brings in a few sticks. Once again, there's a basic stick making the cup, the receptacle for the eggs, and they will lay their eggs on this ledge and they will defend it. And this is where the young will grow up and they will fledge from here. And wouldn't you know it, our old pigeon guillemots find little nooks and crannies to make their nests here too. So these 3 cormorant species, pigeon guillemots and black oyster catchers, all nest on Chuckanut Rocks. So if you have a kayak, get out there. It's fun to see them in action. Just stay a respectful distance away. Don't bug them. Okay, we're getting into some specialized nesting now. These are the pendant nesters. What you see here is what I've always told people on field trips is to look for something hanging from the trees, hanging from the branches that looks like an old dirty sock. I even set up a field trip once and I went there early and hung a dirty sock from the trees close to this nest. And I'm kind of a joker at times, but we have fun. This is the nest of a bush tit. And you see an adult on the left, you see an adult on the right, changing places because they've got young to feed down at the bottom of this pendant nest. The nest is going to be down in the very bottom of this pendant. And when the young are old enough to fledge, they'll cut out a hole down at the bottom so it's easier for them to get out and get on their way and get on with their lives. What an incredible, incredible bird they are. These are two of our smallest birds, and they build one of the largest, most intricate nests you can imagine. Now, once again, if you find a nest and you see that it's active, get away at a respectful distance, take a lunch, take a stool, pull up a chair and watch. Because here's the male bush tit coming to the nest. They always came to the same branch, as you'll see in the next slide, coming to the nest with a mouthful of goodies for the nestling. And right after he leaves, he goes into the nest, he takes the food, he leaves the nest, and here comes the female. Similar goodies, same branch. If you find the same branch, you're in good shape. Going in to feed them. These are the most enjoyable, entertaining birds to watch when they're nesting. They are nonstop. I mean, imagine the size of the nest and two of our smallest birds. Constant construction, constant, every day, and then they're feeding their young. We have another pendant nester here. This is the Bullock's Oriole, the western counterpart of the eastern Baltimore Oriole. They build a pendant that is quite a bit larger and usually much harder to find than the bush tits. But what a beautiful bird they are, and they'll be coming around pretty soon. Look around end of April, first part of May, they'll be migrating into the area. Now we're getting specialized here. Once again, we have a cup to hold the eggs, a cup to hold the young once they're hatched. This is a barn swallow nest, and they go beyond the norm when they build a nest. They make innumerable trips to a perfect mud hole, and they attach every mouthful, beakful of mud that they bring from the mud hole to a sidewall or some other surface. They attach it, they build it out, they put twigs and moss and everything in it, and before you know it, they've got it just right. And this particular nest I found at Silver Lake had 5, you can count them, 5 hungry nests in it. Here's another nest that I found at Tennant Lake. This one was attached to a light fixture. I guess to some extent there was some warmth that came from the light when it was on, and it sure helped me to take these photographs. And once again, this is a barn swallow feeding 2 nestlings, and you can see that they're hungry. They're being patient, actually. One of the all-time favorite architects of mine when it comes to birds is the cliff swallow. These are the swallows that you'll find at Capistrano if you happen to be down there when the swallows return. Cliff swallows build the most intricate mud structure you've ever seen. They find a sheer wall, usually with an overhead, kind of a 90-degree angle. And once again, they go to the perfect mud hole, they find the perfect beak full of mud, and they make innumerable trips back and forth to attach that beak full of mud to that particular wall until they have it just right. And then they make the perfect entry hole. And inside is their cup, the basic cup that is the receptacle for the eggs. Just absolutely amazing birds. I've never seen anything like it in my life, but tomorrow's another day. Here's our title bird. This is a female Anna's hummingbird, one of our smallest birds, as you know, sitting on one of our smallest nests. Hummingbirds make their nests out of lichens and moss and spider webs and things that allow for a little bit of elasticity, because as the eggs hatch and the young get older, the nest itself is able to expand as they get larger. And it's just a marvelous adaptation as far as I'm concerned. Now here's the female sitting on the eggs. I first found her right behind City Hall in Bellingham. I kept going back on a regular basis, not too much disturbed. I had a great spot where I could hide. She couldn't see me, so she carried on, and lo and behold, before I knew it, she was feeding young. Two hummingbird nestlings per nest. And as they grow, again, the nest is going to expand. This is a nest of the cousin. This is a rufous hummingbird nest. I had a call from someone a while back who said, "Oh, we've got a hummingbird nesting at our house, and can you come take pictures?" And I said, "Sure, where is it?" They said, "Well, you'll have to stand in the bathtub in the upstairs bedroom to get your best look." So this is a memorable shoot of these two rufous hummingbird nestlings from my friend's upstairs bathtub. But again, this nest will expand as they get larger. Now, this is what an adult bird sees when they return to the nest. Hungry nestlings, starving to death. These are American robins. And my experience, this is right outside my house, actually, where I used to live on the south side. And again, I found a nest and I backed off, found a place where I could get a good view. And then I waited, and I got this kind of activity. And when I saw the adult robin come in, their shadow wakes the chicks, the nestlings, the vibration on the branches wakes the nestlings, and they instinctively open their mouths because here comes mom and or dad to feed them. American robins come to the nest, and like so many nesters that we're getting into now, they have a habit of feeding the young and then removing the fecal sacs from the nest. They remove the fecal sacs. The excretion from the nestlings is encased in a small sac, and the adults take these fecal sacs away and throw them down someplace. They just want to get rid of any odor that might attract predators to the nest. What a concept. If only humans could do that. We have a different method, but it works. And now we're getting into a different habitat. This is at Scudder Pond in Bellingham. And you see the hungry nestling there? Guess what? Perfect habitat for red-winged blackbirds. Here's the adult male, pardon me, taking food to the nest. Every day, all day, they do this. And once again, you find the nest, you sit back and you watch, and you get just an amazing variety of scenes that you'll file away for your memories when you get too old to get out. That's what I do. Now, this is the adult female red-winged blackbird. Now, she's not in the process of feeding anyone. She's done her job. She'll feed them occasionally, but she's done her job, and now it's to keep an eye out for the nestlings, because occasionally nestlings get tired of being in the nest. You know, it's kind of tight quarters, it's kind of cooped up. You don't like your siblings that much, so what you do is you decide you're going. But sometimes you fledge too soon. This particular red-winged blackbird nestling was not quite ready to fledge. He was only able to hop around, and he hopped around and he fell into the water at Scudder Pond. He got soaked. He shook it off. He got back on the lily pads. He eventually climbed all the way back up into the nest. And I got to watch it because I was there. Amazing. And here's the neighbor, a couple of bushes down. This is a song sparrow. He's keeping an eye on his nest because there are nestlings to feed. There are 4 song sparrow nestlings in this particular nest, hidden away in the cattails. And once again, I can't overemphasize the fact that when it's nesting season, you just kind of go someplace where you think there might be a nest and just sit or stand in one place. My grandpa taught me long ago to go someplace and just be quiet. Don't move, don't do anything. And whatever you disturbed when you went in will eventually come back, and you can see a lot. Like Yogi Bear said, you can see a lot by watching. a unique nest. It's part cup, it's part pendant, not totally pendant, not totally cup. But again, there is a cup inside. And if you see the beak sticking up on the very top, that's the beak of a female Hutton's vireo. I found this rather accidentally. I saw a flash of a bird across the trail when I was in Watcom Falls Park. And once again, I followed that bird as well as I could. And he went to this nest. And this is a female sitting on eggs, Hutton's vireo. And this is a male Hutton's vireo taking food to her, because her job is to sit on the eggs, to incubate them until they hatch. And his job is to keep her happy. Doesn't that sound rather human-like? Go out and get pizza, Dad. Okay. Right down the trail, once again, at Scudder Pond. You have to go there. This is a very tight trail. This is a very long lens. No disturbing here. Have to be respectful. No quick movements. You get shots like this of a cedar waxwing sitting on a nest. This, I presume, was a female, because the male was doing the thing where he's back and forth feeding her, so on and so forth, while she incubates. It's a beautiful thing to watch. And occasionally, the two adults have nestlings, and they're probably beaming with pride if cedar waxwings can do that. But they've got nestlings deep down in the nest. And once again, the male is to the left, the female is to the right. She's tending to them. She's tending to their every need as much as she can. And occasionally, when the nestlings get just a little bit older, they're still nestlings, but they're hungry like all the other baby birds that you find in nests. I guess I was that way when I was younger too, according to my mom's story. Now, this is a unique bird in a unique situation. The bird that made this nest is a bird that's typically found in mountain streams and higher elevations. This particular nest is one of about 6 that I found in 1 year of the American dipper. Look it up, you'll love it. American dippers are unique in that they live and raise their young on rushing mountain streams. But there's a stretch of Watcom Creek that goes through Watcom Falls Park that is ideal habitat for these guys. And so they make good use of everything there. They make good use of the terrain, the flowing water, and the food to be had in there. Now, when an American dipper returns to the nest, after it's fully built, it'll be totally closed in. It'll look like an oven. You don't even know it's there because it's so well camouflaged. But when they return to the nest with food, they're nestlings waiting to be fed. There's a little hole on the inside where they can access, where the adults can access those hungry babes. Whew. And what do they eat? Something like this. Once again, I staked out a perfect spot below the nest where the adults were feeding. If this looks delicious to you, then you're part dipper. That's all I can say. This is the nest of a marsh wren. Once again, it's a cup. You see the dark hole, and that's what I found the first time. But what I saw first was a bird disappearing into the cattails. Followed him in, found a dark hole, and that's what birds look for, is a dark recess, which you're going to see soon when we get into cavity nesters. Marsh wrens. This is a marsh wren above that particular nest, gathering cattail lint fluff to line the inner part of the cup inside the nest. Once again, one of our great birds. This is at Tennant Lake outside of Ferndale. Okay, we're getting into all-time favorites now. This is cavity nesting time, and one of my most exciting bird photography, bird sighting episodes happened in Watcom Falls Park early on a Sunday morning, a rainy Sunday morning. A friend and I had found this particular barred owl nest in the top of a dead, broken off snag, 75 feet up. And if you look closely and try to feel the perspective, you can tell that I was a little bit higher than the owl. My friend and I climbed 80 feet up in a neighboring tree 30 feet away so that I could spend 3 hours hanging onto ropes and different kinds of climbing equipment to take a series of photos, and this is what you get. This is a female barred owl. The male barred owl was close by, and he let us know that we were getting a little too close. My friend was the lead climber, so he got most of the strikes on the top of his helmet. We wore helmets, I can tell you. And I stayed with this particular nest for the 4 months that we first found them, and the young started to fledge and stand outside. This is back down on ground level, and you can see the young are starting to get a little bit bigger. And owls do not clean their nests out like the smaller birds that remove fecal sacs. And you can just imagine the aroma coming out of a nest where nothing is clean. All the food that they brought in, all the excrement. I don't want to go into details, but I think you know what I mean. So as soon as owls specifically get sick and tired of the cramped quarters because they're all getting bigger, it's getting smelly, what they do is a technique called branching. They walk out on the nearest branch, and this is where you find some of God's cutest creation. I don't use the word cute that often, but this is definitely, these are 2 of the 3 owlets that were born in that particular nest. And the one on the right is looking at me. The one on the left is looking at his sibling saying, come on, it's not that hard. Branching is a tough job if you've never left the nest, I would imagine. Pileated woodpeckers. Now, keep in mind that a lot of people confuse their feeding holes, which are the long, oblong feeding holes that pileated woodpeckers make. They always make a round, typically round hole for their nests. And here are 2 nestling pileated woodpeckerlets. Nestlings waiting to be fed by the adult. Whatcom Creek, Whatcom Falls Park. They're there. Now this is taken above Alta Lake in eastern Washington, but I had to do this because I make nesting boxes, and I have hole saws that make holes that are nowhere as clean as this one. This red-naped sapsucker made this hole precisely round the way he did. Amazing. But they do that. They know what they're doing, and sometimes I don't. This is one of the nesting boxes that I make, and you can see the rounded hole that I make with a hole saw. And apparently it suited this chestnut-back chickadee enough to where they nested in it one season. There were 4 chestnut-back chickadees that fledged from this nest. And we can talk about my nest later on, but we have to go into more cavity nesters. This is a tree swallow that also uses the same type nesting box that we make. See the typical round hole is usually 1 1/8 inches in diameter to keep larger birds, predatory birds out, but to let them in and out. And here's another nesting box with a round hole. This is a female western bluebird removing the fecal sac from the nest. This is the male western bluebird waiting his turn to take food into the nest. It's a process, and it's constant. It's constantly going on and on and on. And once again, find a place to sit, wait them out, just watch them, and just enjoy the heck out of what they're doing. And this is the craziest bird out there. This is a house wren. This is a nesting box that I built, and they make the messiest nest on the inside. You like to think that they like their work, but I tell you, I've taken the front off nesting boxes in the fall to clean them, and it's nothing but a jumble of sticks and twigs, and you just can't believe how bad it is in there. Oy. But they removed the fecal sac, so it should be pretty tidy. Phil Calise has made purple martins successful. He's made the attempt to get purple martins back to Semiahmoo a success by putting up nesting boxes that are specific to purple martins. This is a bird I grew up with in South Louisiana. Love them, and I love that Phil brought them back. And they've not only come back, they're just kind of going crazy. They're occupying every nesting box and plastic gourd that he puts out on Tongue Point at the end of Semiahmoo Spit. And here's one of the nestlings getting fed by the female purple martin. You can see the tail end of a dragonfly going down the hatch. Melodious, some of the best singers you'll ever find. This sit yourself down in front of a small nesting colony of purple martins, and you'll just have a great day. Now here's a bird. This is a black-capped chickadee, but this is a great illustration of my point. Humans, we think we know exactly what birds need when it comes to nesting boxes. So we build nesting boxes to their specification. We mount them on the side of a house, on the side of a tree to a specific height, because we know that's exactly where they want them to be. But we're not that smart after all. One day I was walking along Whatcom Creek, and once again I saw the flash of a bird. This particular black-capped chickadee flashed across the trail, went to the top of this stump of a cherry tree, paused, and I waited to see what he was up to. I didn't know where he was going, so you wait and you observe. He went down into the stump. Turns out he and his mate were excavating a nest. So I made it a point to make notes of this, write it down, keep a journal. I went back about twice a week to check on the progress, and I have the whole sequence that took place. And to make it a little bit shorter here, this is what I found eventually. 4 eggs down in the bottom of that particular nest. Now see, there are no guidelines that we have, for building nesting boxes for birds that follow this scenario. But eventually, those 4 nests, they were incubated by both chickadees, and eventually there were 4 nestlings down in the bottom of that cavity inside a cherry tree stump. Blew me away. I thought, how could we make nesting boxes that look like this? But thing is, we couldn't. Now, this is the end of birds in their nest, but what I want to do right now is a quick summary, maybe not so quick because I've been known to elaborate oftentimes too much, about our nesting box program. I've done this nesting box program independently for North Cascades Audubon for years. I've done it for Wings Over Water, for the Washington Brandt Foundation. These are the boxes that I make. I used to make them a lot more than I do now, but this is the type box that I make. The 2 on the left, the vertical boxes, are the typical boxes for chickadees, nuthatches, house wrens, even downy woodpeckers will use them. They'll make the hole a little bit larger. And the one on the bottom with the diamond-shaped opening, I make specifically for violet green swallows. And these birds will start coming back anytime now because it's getting really close to the nesting season. I put up 3 boxes on Thursday because I want to be ready. The large box on the right is quite a production, if I do say so myself. It's designed specifically for wood ducks, which are cavity nesters. Keep in mind that there are a couple of other species that also use this same box in the same particular habitat. For one, hooded mergansers use this particular nesting box. And lo and behold, saw-whet owls, one of our smallest owls, will also use this particular wood duck box. And unless you put a sign out front saying wood ducks only, you're going to get other people. No doubt about it. There will be other people using your nest. And you might notice a little carrying handle that I put up at the top. So it's easier for me to transport the boxes from one place to another. This is one of the setups that I did when I was active with North Cascades Audubon. We go to different events and we set up a little tent in case it rained, heaven forbid. And there are the nesting boxes and all the how-to about how to hang them, where to hang them, so on and so forth. But I always remind people about those pesky black-capped chickadees nesting in the cherry tree stump. And, you think you got it all figured out, but you don't really. And part of the process over the years was to introduce kids to nesting boxes. And part of that introduction involved letting kids assemble some of the boxes themselves. And I bought a series of small hammers to use for the process for the kids to use. And every kid, no exception, every kid said, I don't want no stinking small hammer. Give me that big hammer. They all went for my 20-ounce hammer to pound those nails. And these 2 guys right here now are both the 2 little guys. They're both over 6 feet tall. They're the sons of a friend of mine. And I know Holly Roger might be watching this. It'd be good if she were. I've sent her this photograph as a good memory link to her boys when they were growing up. Nesting boxes, yes. And that's the end of the program. I don't know who takes over now, but this is where we are, and this is what's happening. So I think Debbie or Dan want to chime in here. I can fill the airspace by telling stories about nesting boxes I've known, but who might have questions, answers? Debbie, jump in here.
Hi,
Hi.
First of all, Joe, this was amazing. And I wasn't able to type in any questions. I have a few questions, but apparently we have about 5 minutes. So
I know I had my timer here.
Okay, so maybe we have time for 1 or 2 questions. Is there anyone in the chat box or the Q&A that has a question that we could answer? Or I'm happy to provide some of mine if you guys don't have any. But we will be ending this. And then if you want to join in on the next session with Joe, which is a video of the Blaine Harbor bird walk.
Oh, yeah.
Then that will be coming up, and you will need to use a link that you would have received with your registration for today. And then you will also, or you can live stream it as well. So you can take your pick on how you want to do that. So
I'll be here.
Okay. Should I ask a question? Anyone to go or stay?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Should I read? You going to read them, or should I read them?
Well, are there?
I can see them and read them.
Okay, go ahead. We just have a couple. Time for a couple.
Okay, from Tina England Caldwell to all panelists. Love this one-on-one. Went right to the next one. Says, thanks, Joe. That's not a question, but you're welcome.
Okay, I have a question if there aren't any. There says there's one question, 2 questions. Okay. Can I purchase a chickadee nest box made by you?
You can email me through Wings Over Water, and I will we'll talk about what you need, what kind you want, how many you want, price, so on and so forth.
Okay, email you directly. Okay. And then do you still make and sell boxes? I guess that's the next question. The same answer?
Yes. My shop is active, and I have cedar available. They're all made of Western red cedar, no paint, no finish of any kind. And get in touch with me and we'll fix you up. Okay.
Do you mind if I mention that we do the nest box program for kids for Wings Over Water?
Not at all.
Okay. So we have for many years now continued the tradition of Joe's idea of the kids finishing up a nest box. And then we have that happening every year at our live festival. And we will be doing it again next year, where kids have an opportunity. It's a free by donation only. And the kids come and they can finish. The process has started. They just finish it up. Joe has been involved in that for many years, as well as my husband has sort of taken that over as well too. So there takes a few guys to make a bunch of boxes, but they do it.
If I could just throw in, I've sold over 1,000 boxes.
Okay, 1,000 boxes.
I still have all my fingers.
Okay, all right. I'm proud of you for keeping all those fingers.
Thank you so much.
So I think if there's anything else here, have a question about, do bush tits reuse their nests?
No, they're usually blown down or torn down. Blown down by the wind and rain, or torn down by predators trying to see if there are any eggs or chicks left in the nest. They don't last. No.
Okay. So we're going to end here, and then we'll go ahead and see Joe in just a minute when we head over to the bird walk.
Do I need to change links?
Yes, you do.
So I'll sign off and change?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.